This is your 420 Radio News for Monday, June 17th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. U.S. Supreme Court rules that pre-Miranda silence can be used in court. This from Huffington Post. The Supreme Court says prosecutors can use a person's silence against them if it comes before he's told of his right to remain silent. The 5-4 ruling comes in the case of Genovevo Salinas, who was convicted of a 1992 murder. During police questioning, and before he was arrested and read his Miranda rights, Salinas answered some questions, but did not answer when asked if a shotgun he had would match up with the murder weapon. The Fifth Amendment protects Americans against forced self-incrimination, with the Supreme Court saying that prosecutors cannot comment on a defendant's refusal to testify at trial. The courts have expanded that right to answering questions in police custody, with police required to tell people under arrest that they have a right to remain silent without it being used in court. Prosecutors argued that since Salinas was answering some questions, therefore not invoking his right to silence, and since he wasn't under arrest and wasn't compelled to speak, his silence on the incriminating question doesn't get constitutional protections. Salinas's, quote, Fifth Amendment claim fails because he did not expressly invoke the privilege against self-incrimination in response to the officer's question, Justice Samuel Alito writes. It has long been settled that the privilege generally is not self-executing and that a witness who desires its protections must claim it. Maine lawmakers pass measure expanding state's medicinal cannabis program from the Normal blog. House and Senate lawmakers last week gave final approval to legislation LD 1062 to allow patients diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, inflammatory bowel disease, and other debilitating disorders to be able to engage in the therapeutic use of cannabis. The measure expands the list of qualifying conditions for which a Maine physician may legally recommend cannabis to include post-traumatic stress disorder, inflammatory bowel disease, dyskinetic and spastic movement disorders, and other diseases causing severe and persistent muscle spasms. It is the second time that Maine legislatures have acted to expand the pool of patients who may have access to cannabis therapy. 4 states, Connecticut, Delaware, New Mexico, and Oregon, specifically allow for the use of cannabis to treat symptoms of post-traumatic stress, as well as California's general allowance for any other illness for which marijuana may provide relief. Marijuana initiative gets closer to Alaska ballot from KTOO.org. An initiative to set up a legal marijuana market has cleared a hurdle for getting on the ballot in 2014. Lieutenant Governor Meade Treadwell certified that the initiative language conformed with the Alaska statute this afternoon, just 1 day short of his deadline. That means initiative sponsors can start circulating petitions to show that a sufficient number of Alaskans want to vote on the issue. The sponsors need more than 30,000 signatures to do that. Right now, Alaskans are allowed to possess small amounts of marijuana in their homes, but the sale of marijuana is still a crime. Officials want to ban smoking medical marijuana in public from Boston Magazine. State Representative Cleon Turner's idea is simple and straightforward. Quote, I want to provide municipalities, landlords, property owners, and business owners the opportunity to prohibit smoking marijuana, whether for medical purposes or otherwise, on their property, end quote, said the Democrat who represents the Cape Cod town of Dennis. In the language of 4 separate bills filed by Turner, which will go before the Joint Committee on the Judiciary, depending on the legislation, various entities would have the power to keep people who use marijuana for medicinal purposes from lighting up the drug in designated areas, even inside their own apartments. The Mayo Clinic says teens with chronic pain should not use medical marijuana, from CBSNews.com. Teens with chronic pain should not be prescribed medical marijuana, according to the Mayo Clinic. Due to a lack of information on the risks and benefits of medical marijuana for adolescents, the Mayo Clinic is not recommending that youth be given pot for pain conditions. While the drug may help alleviate some of their other conditions or symptoms, marijuana can lead to some negative short-term side effects, including fatigue, impaired concentration, and slower reaction times. Dr. J. Michael Bostwick, a Mayo Clinic psychiatrist, said in a press release, quote, the consequences may be very, very severe, particularly for adolescents who may get rid of their pain or not at the expense of the rest of their life, end quote. This has been your 420 Radio News for Monday, June 17th, 2013. I'm Russ Belville. When we come back, we go behind the headlines of the latest study showing that the enacting of medical marijuana laws at the state level does not lead to an increase in teen marijuana use. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on 420 Radio. We'll be right back after this.